Hello and welcome to Masters of the Forge episode 20. I'm Snorri, and with me in the gender-neutral recording cave is our fellow Adam.
Hola, bienvenidos. How you
Hello.
doing, man? How you doing?
Cheerful as always.
Oh,
How
of
do you do
course.
it?
I do a lot of repression. I do a lot of burying of feelings, and
Drinking?
there's drinking involved. There's also a lot of just general not caring about dumb crap. So that's how I roll.
Hmm. That's actually quite good. You also
Yeah.
have a wonderful wife.
Yes, I do. I actually have a wonderful life and a wonderful wife and two great dogs, and that's generally how. You know what? Who cares, right?
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah. For
You
the
only
most
have
part.
one. You only have one life to live. You know.
In theory.
In theory,
You
yes,
might
it's
have
true.
9 lives, but you die between each time, so you forget.
It's true. That's true. So man,
Anyways.
wow, yeah, it's been 2 weeks, which is a plus for our listeners because unlike last time, it's not 4 weeks like last time, so that's nice.
Yeah.
We
What
have
has
a really
happened?
what happened? Lots of stuff happened. I'm gonna go into a long, drawn out description of what I did during my the past 2 weeks. So yeah, I've been busy as usual. I've been working on missions and rules for the next tournament. I'm gonna talk more about that next week. But I also played a bunch of combat patrol games, which has been kind of we're starting a league at the store, which is a lot of fun. I've been trying out my Adepticon list for the combat patrol. The Adepticon hasn't released their new combat patrol rules, which it will be kind of important considering we have a whole new way of manifesting psychic powers, and summoning in combat patrol can be really weird. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I've been running my orcs, 3 units of boys and trucks and a weird boy, and I bought some fantasy orcs, some of the wild orcs or whatever they're called, and I'm
Feral
running
ones?
feral orcs, and I've been running those as bloodletters, and that's been a whole lot of fun. I played against buddy space wolves, played against my buddy Mike, who's a corrections officer. He's been playing Blood Angels, and I played against my little brother-in-law Brandon, and he's running his Blood Angels as well. Uh, I won two of my games, and one of them, well, Brandon beat me finally. So good for him.
Was it your cousin-in-law?
Brother-in-law. Yeah, he won. It was pretty good. I was pretty pleased. So yeah, I've also been working on the IC's Armies on Parade blog posts, which take a really long time. I spent most of last night working on it, but it's worth doing. It's nice to focus on people and really show them that we care about their participation and their success.
And showing
Um,
off some of those fantastic armies.
yes, if you're a friend of us on Facebook, or if you're a Twitter follower, you will have seen those links posted.
There's
Um,
also a certain chance of them appearing on the Overlords, I think.
oh, yep, I posted it there. I posted
Yeah.
it there as well. Yeah.
So it's pretty
I
much easily available for most people who follow
Yes,
anything of 40k's relevance on
yes.
Facebook.
I think we just said if they're not following us or the Overlords or my blog, they're not relevant.
Yeah. But
No, I'm okay
isn't
with
that the
that.
truth? Yeah, isn't that the truth?
It's so the truth. um, I took some time out for myself, just a little bit of time after building a bunch of crap. I built a runt bot. My A friend from the Independent Characters forums actually was kind enough to send me a gift of a runt bot, and from Forge World, and I built it, and he is really cool. I'm gonna be running him as a creation of one of my big mechs, and we'll tell his story at a later date as well once I get it painted up. I finished a level 1 paint job for Frontline, one of the last things I had to do. a rhino, a razorback, and a storm talon. Brown. This is the repeat customer who had the brown marines. My second commission, and so I'm really pleased to have those finished. And he also ordered a level 3 Legion of the Damned army. Sorry, not army, unit. So a 10-man Legion of the Damned unit. This is the first level 3 job I've done for them. And actually, the manager, Jason, the manager, he said, "This is to be your finest hour." So my very last job is going to be paint these 10 level 3 Legion of the Damned, and I'm gonna start this today. Brandon's coming over. I'm gonna be doing some base coats for him on his Blood Angels with the airbrush, and he's gonna paint. We're both gonna paint together, and we're going to really try very hard to get those done this weekend, since we have a long weekend, thanks to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King.
Well, sounds like you have your plans set.
Yes, sir. What are you up to, Snorri? I haven't seen anything posted this week.
It's been kind of quiet, sort of busy at work. That pretty much steals most of my time.
Mm-hmm.
I did get one game in with my buddy Anush. It was
this sounds like you told me about this game.
Yeah, he has moved back home to my hometown, so I'm gonna see him a bit more often. But we just realized that pretty much every single piece of terrain that we have, it's like either of us, is at the club. And that's not really easy to get because it was a Sunday and, really far away. So we had a good old-fashioned ghetto game of Warhammer. We decided to test out the tablescapes tiles. We broke out the boxes of cityscape tiles. And those are some really nice tiles. There's a lot of detail on them, but they're not too busy. And also all the debris on them. It's actually possible to balance models on those without them falling all over the place. So that was actually a really nice surprise. The game was, his Space Marines against my Space Marines, or Chaos Space Marines. I died, as I tend to do, and the board was kind of naked. It was a Warhammer Fantasy Battle tower, just like a regular fortress tower, and a Citadel forest, and 2 shoeboxes. That was
yes,
yeah, exactly, totally ghetto.
I love it. That's what I like to see.
We could have done some soda bottles and everything, but the board wasn't too big. We decided on instead of a 4x6, we played on a 3x5, simply because that's what we had room for. But let me just say this: those clips that you used to keep those tablescapes tiles together, we could bump into that table, no problem. It sticks together like you wouldn't believe it.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It's still really easy to separate the tiles when you really want to. I'm really falling in love with this kit. So I can't wait to get these tiles painted.
Okay. Yeah, no, that sounds freaking awesome, dude. And you get a nice table going for your home, just so you can have buddies over and roll some dices, some dices. That's great. So how'd that game go?
We decided to have something of a silly theme to it. We had a street going across the table, and a couple of runners off. The big shoeboxes, they were houses or housing blocks, impassable terrain wrecks. And since we had a couple of street corners here and there, we decided to have the game as Drug Wars 40K. We were basically fighting over street corners to sell our stuff. It was basically, okay, since I'm playing Death Guard, this is completely not something I advocate, but we just decided to have some completely silly game simply because we didn't have any terrain.
Warriors,
yeah,
play.
Yeah. Oh, that is I love that movie. But anyways, my Death Guard are out peddling dirt, and the goody Two Shoes Space Marines are trying to push me off the corners. So we're fighting to see who can control the most street corners, to see if I can keep peddling drugs, or if Space Marines win and keep the streets clean. They did. So go good guys, because, well, drugs are bad, okay? And let's just leave it at that.
Nice.
It was a fun game, but it was a lot of grey plastic and some shoeboxes and some painted miniatures here and there. It was good old-fashioned the way it was when we started out this hobby. It was kind of a fun throwback.
That is awesome, man. That is really cool. That is really cool. So, I guess the only other thing I'd like to mention is that I remind everybody that I am running a Star Trek Attack Wing tournament at Adepticon this year, and we don't have much of a turnout so far. So, please let your friends know, let everybody know, spread the word that that I'm running that on Sunday. It'll be Sunday morning to the afternoon, running that Star Trek Attack Wing tournament. So. Please join up if you're interested.
And since not a lot of people has signed up yet, that makes it really easy to win.
It's true, it does. And I noticed that a lot of people are signing up for that narrative Battlefleet Gothic thing we all signed up for. I think Jason's in it too.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's gonna be rad.
I've dusted off my own Tau fleet to paint it up a little bit before I leave, because it's actually one of the few chances I have to bring out my Tau fleet, because I don't play them enough.
Right, and it seems I still have to contact them. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to bring my orcs or not. So we'll see. It's not like it would be a big deal to like just go on eBay, buy some cruisers, spray them, and dry brush them, and be done, because these ships are really easy to paint. But I'd like to use my orcs if I can. So I'm gonna email the organizer of that one.
Yeah. Speaking of Battlefleet Gothic, as if it's not already old news, but yay, computers!
Yeah,
Battlefleet
dude,
Gothic on the PC or something.
Yeah, I'm not very good at real-time strategy. It's just too much to think about at one time, and you have to react. But whatever, it's spaceships
in space,
I love spaceships
on the
space
internet.
Shooting. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, it looks glorious. We still need to see just what it's going to be exactly, but I think this is a great thing, because it keeps a game alive, even though you can't get the models for it anymore, and the rules are sort of outdated. But I guess I'm a little bit of a grumpy person when I say that this is Games Workshop just basically keeping the IP alive and keeping the copyright for this by keeping the game alive on the PC instead of on the tabletop.
Well, why
but
not?
Hey,
if you're not
at least
doing
they're
anything,
doing it.
Yeah, if you're not doing anything with the IP, why not rent it out and let people make a game with it if they want? And if you make a profit, great. If you don't, well, it's that game developer's risk, not yours. So
yeah, exactly. Games Workshop doesn't care.
Yeah.
But
so it'll be really good. It'll be interesting to see how people play it, because traditional Imperial ships, it's all about the broadsides, right? And sometimes you just have to push your models in the middle of the enemy to get those double-sided broadsides going. And I wonder how the targeting and everything is going to work with a real-time strategy game, because it sounds like it would be really hard to manage all of those activities at once.
Yeah, but like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see how they manage to finish this game. But I have high hopes, and I actually do believe that these guys can actually.
High hopes. He's got high hopes. So Space Wolves, right?
Yeah, apparently
Space Wolves.
We've donned our fur pelts and drank our mead and produced a supplement. And read a book. That is actually the most crazy thing. We've actually read a book.
Yes. So we're splitting this up into two parts, in case you didn't notice by the title of the podcast. This was way too much to put into one episode. Oh my goodness, we almost died recording this one.
Yeah.
I mean, we will have almost died after we're done recording it.
Yes. I was a little bit worried about the length of this episode since we were skipping one of the scenarios. But after recording about 2.5 hours of just talking about the book with some scenarios and some extra cool rules here and there, I think this is going to be a really long episode, even though we had to cut it down. So, yeah, hooray us.
Go us.
Go podcast.
Go podcast powers.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
is a good episode. I hope you enjoy it. Snorri, was there a note we wanted to make in the show notes?
I think there was something about spoilers.
Oh, right, spoilers. Yeah, don't listen to this episode if you care anything about spoilers and haven't read Battle of the Fang yet, because you will be a sad panda.
Yeah, pretty much everything we talk about is stepping through the book, talking a little bit about what's going on, and then inserting scenarios here and there where it suits them.
Yeah. So, yeah, with a little reflection on our part as to the meanings of things and whatever as well.
Yeah. So don't come complaining to us if we ruined the book for you before you even read it. You have been warned. Go read the book, listen to the show, or just listen to the show while reading it, or, whatever you feel like doing. Just don't blame us if we did something that you didn't like, because you have been warned.
It is important to do spoiler warning, though, Snorri. I had somebody kind of upset at me for spoiling a small point about the Wheel of Time several episodes ago.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So yes, these spoiler alerts are very important.
Yes.
So we provide them at your I don't know what
pleasure, listening pleasure. I guess it's not a pleasure.
We offer these at your list for your listening. That never mind. Moving on.
Yeah, thank you. Take it away, Wendy.
For all you wargamers out there listening, with boxes and boxes of unpainted miniatures, collecting dust and getting the stink eye from your significant other, one man is on a mission, nay, a quest to help you out. The page is called the 1 Hour Army, and it's about getting the most out of your painting time, no matter your skill level. Being privy to some insider info, we know there's an ebook in production and many tutorials on the way. Once again, the 1 Hour Army, find it on Facebook.
Volga Federica! Well,
welcome
something
back.
like that. Yeah.
And I said welcome back!
Oh, great. You ruined it. I just told Adam, please don't intro this with welcome back, but he did it anyway. But then again, you should have heard the whole battle cry situation in Nottingham during the Weekender. That was something.
Yeah.
By the way, Black Library, whoever you were who did that recording thing, I would really like to hear some of those clips simply because, well, it would be fun to hear just how drunk we were when we did that.
It certainly would.
I think we were definitely in character.
The world needs this.
Yes, most definitely. So, Battle of the Fang.
Yeah, Battle of the Fang. This book has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it. But what's it about, Snorri? Give the listeners kind of a general idea of what this book is about.
Okay, so it's obviously Space Wolves. It's obviously happening on Fenris because the Fang happens to be the Space Wolves' fortress monastery. And, it's set a couple of thousand years after the Horus Heresy and the whole, I guess, botched cleanup that the Space Wolves were trying to do on Prospero still haunts them quite badly.
Mm-hmm.
So they try to go out and finish the job and killing off the entire Thousand Sons and Magnus the Red and everything. And things don't go as planned because the whole thing is actually a giant plan by the Thousand Sons to lure the Space Wolves away and do evil stuff on Fenris.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, did we say spoilers yet?
Oh, no, we didn't. I guess we did that in the intro. The book opens up with Greylock, the Jarl of the 12th Company. The book opens up with Greylock hunting alone around Asaheim, and Greylock happens to be a Jarl of the 12th Great Company.
Yeah, he's kind of. I didn't really warm up to him at first. This character seems. He seems reserved compared to other Space Wolves, and I think a lot of the other Space Wolves don't seem to like him much either.
They don't.
No, but what's funny is as the book progresses, and like he loses his temper, and and he gets he starts feeling the wolf within sort of surface a little bit, the kill urge, as they say in the book. Hey, I look at it and I go, this is a sedate space wolf.
Yeah. he is just as wolf as everyone else in the Space Wolves. He just knows that his rage is better used in certain places. He's not like always on and always just running around wanting to punch stuff. He is like much more calm and strategic instead of just jumping in and just going nuts. And that really helps pace this book, because he is something of a balance to the rest of the Space Wolves who just, as we come to in a short moment, the rest of the Space Wolves find this perfect opportunity to take out the Thousand Suns, and instead of thinking 3 times over and just like working this around a little bit and thinking, it's like, are there any disadvantages? There's like, go!
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's much wiser, I guess, than a lot of the Space Wolves, in the sense that he actually knows how to analyze a situation instead of just following his pure instincts and just going for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of focused on throughout the entire book. Like the whole book is really about that inability to sort of think things through. And
Yeah.
even when a Jarl or any of the leaders kind of know that they're making a bad decision, they feel like they can't make another decision because the rest of the wolves won't accept it. And I think that's a really interesting point, but more on that later. So yeah, it opens up with Greylock hunting in the Asaheim wilderness. He's hunting all by himself. He's not even in his armor or anything. He's just walking around the cold wilderness hunting. What are they?
Konungur.
They're giant freaking elk things with all kinds of legs and horns and dangerous body parts. And he jumps out and he tears the damn thing's throat out and starts drinking its blood.
Yeah, he's basically just hiding in the snow, waiting for this thing, and just suddenly he just bursts out, sprinting like crazy, throwing himself through the air over this Konungur, and just like going nuts, the way you think of as a crazed werewolf, like being, just like tearing and ripping and destroying this thing, simply because it's what the wolves do. It's like sort of a primal thing that they revere.
Yeah, and it seems like it's kind of a private act too. It's almost kind of like going to the bathroom for people or whatever. It's almost like when the Battle Brothers pick him up in the flyer, they're very apologetic, almost as if they're interrupting this private time that he's taking for himself.
Yeah, I'm maybe it's because it's sort of a private thing, but also I think they're a little bit intimidated by his being in this whole hunting state of mind, that he is very close to this inner wolf thing that Space Wolves fear, that they don't really want to anger him because they know that because he's in this state of mind that he might lash out and go crazy on them. And
that's a good point. Later on, some of the humans make note of that in mental notes of that. They're afraid to kind of approach wolves if they're pissed off.
Yeah.
So yeah, when the book opens up, I'm a little concerned about the book at this point because the author does choose to use several turns of phrase that are a little anachronistic or modern. I guess those are two different things, but modern as in our world modern, anachronistic as in like not of the time period. So like he's talking about how Greylock is still pumped from the chase, or he's all pumped up. And I thought that was
Yeah,
a weird turn of phrase. And there's a few times in the book where the author does that, and I'm wondering if it's kind of a way to either, well, not either, just a way to connect with the readership, like the
yeah.
usual reader. I'm not sure.
It's I'm pretty sure it's to give us something to relate to, but at the same time, when we're talking about him being still being pumped, just think about the whole adrenaline thing being pumped through his system. I think there's also a bit of a wordplay on that.
Yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. Yeah, speaking of language, I really like he does use the word lope to talk about how the space wolves move, which
Yeah,
is a word generally left for animals, especially carnivores. They kind of have this way of their, you know, having a lot of vertical movement in their steps.
yeah, and I think that's also to conjure up an image of this guy basically sprinting forward, not on two legs, but using his arms
Yeah.
for propulsion.
Yeah, so I think it's cool. I thought that was cool. I think throughout the book, the descriptive text is often, gets the reader to look at the space wolves as almost personified wolves. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The novel then moves on to a very different scene. The external scene of Asaheim, which is basically a really tall, sharp mountains covered in snow, and suddenly we're inside the Fang and we're actually in a big laboratory where this wolf priest is working on what is called the tempering, which is basically a genetic experiment trying to remove some of the worst aspects of the helix, which is the Space Wolf gene code. The whole it's like this trying to remove the werewolf aspect of the gene code and try to make the wolves lose that disadvantage so that they can be their best and their purest.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think, and it's no surprise that Greylock is kind of the sponsor of this project. It's certainly been, okayed by the Great Wolf
It
himself,
has.
but it's really Greylock's project, and Wormblade is basically I guess for want of a better word, the scientist behind the actual work. Now, don't forget, everyone, that Space Marines aren't just proficient physically; they're also all of them geniuses.
Yeah, but by human standards, they are incredibly intelligent.
Yeah,
But the cool thing about this whole tempering project is that it's extremely heretical in a way,
definitely.
because there's actually tampering with the blueprints of the Allfather. And like that's sort of the same as saying the Allfather didn't do the job good enough and they are trying to do it better.
Yep.
But at the same time, I think it's just amazing to see that these space wolves are actually trying so hard to repair what they feel is a weakness so dangerous that it actually justifies heresy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, the way that the project unfolds throughout the book is it shows just how heretical or just how problematic it is for them to be attempting this. Also in this chapter, I thought that the relationship between Mornblade and
Sturmyart.
Sturmyart is really interesting. Like Wormblade is this wolf priest. He's basically a space wolf chaplain. They have a lot of political sway in the space wolves, and Sturmyart is a Rune Priest. Sturmyart is keeping an eye on Wormblade's activities. He's not so convinced it's a great idea. You know?
He's probably feeling the whole heresy part of it very closely. So
Yeah.
he has an issue with this because it's heretical.
Yeah. And it's funny that even though they are politically opposed, they still treat each other like battle brothers. They still treat each other with respect and have this kind of joking rivalry, which I really appreciate, because I think it's important early on to establish this, because you might be afraid that there's some kind of greater inner conflict coming later if it's not set up this way in the beginning. I think they go so far as to joke about the Great Wolf Ironhelm and call him Iron Arse, which was great. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, but you do understand pretty quickly why they have this sort of disrespectful view on their Great Wolf, even though he is their Great Wolf, so he is their Lord and Master in many ways. He is the one that makes the decisions, and you follow them because he is, after all, the Great Wolf. You don't become a Great Wolf without being a really good general. But maybe this guy has actually outlived his usefulness in some ways. It seems like he's so won with the whole idea of the Great Wolf that he has lost sight of what he actually needs to do.
Right. Yeah, he's letting the position kind of dictate what he does instead of following his heart or his brain. And it's very true, as we'll see in a minute. So and Ironhelm, in case anyone is wondering, is the Great Wolf, which is basically the position currently held by Logan Grimnar.
Mr. Reindeer Sled. Yeah. Sorry, that I can't get that Santa Claus Christmas conversion out of my head.
It's so good.
Yes.
So good.
Parallel to the whole setup on Fenris, we have a group of Space Wolves out scouting, and they have found what they believe to be a planet where Magnus the Red and the Thousand Suns are hiding, and the planet's called Gangava Prime.
And it's basically, they know, well, quote unquote, know he's there because a rune priest can feel his presence on the planet. He's absolutely certain of it.
Yeah, and also they've seen signs of pyramid structures and cities with certain patterns that make them know that this is definitely Thousand Suns.
Yeah, and it's relatively close to the Fang too, or to Fenris. Just out of, well, they're like within a month striking distance, which is actually relatively close. And it's kind of like a big, thumb your nose at the Space Wolves. We're gonna hang out down the street.
Yeah.
But yeah, supposedly the planet boasts like 2 million troops and the Bane of Wolves, which they read that rune to be Magnus the Red himself.
Yeah.
Who is the Primarch of the Thousand Suns.
Yeah. But at this meeting that Armhelm calls, everyone's like, oh yeah, let's go kick this ass and, party on and, everything that, the wolves to be. Mm-hmm. And there's Greylock, who's like, yeah, well, we've seen this before, and every time we try to chase down the Thousand Suns, they're not there.
And why are there no spaceships?
Yeah, exactly. This planet is so undefended, there's something wrong. And the rest are just like, yeah, we know. You're the cold-blooded space wolf. You're not like us, Your hair is white, you're pale, you don't have the hot blood of the rest of us. We don't care what you think, because we know he's there. The rune priest says so. Party on and kick some butt.
Yeah, and it's true. Ironhelm does understand that Greylock's reservations have merit. He does, but he looks around the table and he sees all these stern faces, these 10 other great company jarls, and what is he gonna do? How are they going to react if he says, "No, we're not going to go kill Magnus the Red"?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I guess he could have used a little more restraint. He sends every single other great company out to go after him,
Yeah.
and just leaves the 12th behind with poor Greylock.
Yes. It's pretty much like, yeah, you decided to. Well, I guess it says that I'm going to make sure that Magnus the Red dies.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, Greylock, since you spoke up, you get to sit here and make sure nothing happens to our beloved little home.
Yep, and you know what? Greylock really doesn't fight against that either. I mean, he's likely just pissed off about the entire situation. When Ironhelm tells Wormblade that he has to stay behind or not Wormblade, Sturmyart, and he is upset. Like upset that he has to stay behind. But Greylock, nah, that's fine. I'll stay and protect the home.
Yeah.
We're all probably gonna die. But I thought one of the things that was interesting here is they refer to Magnus the Red as the Crimson King, which is really interesting because I think it might be influenced by In the Court of the Crimson King by the old prog rock music group King Crimson. Check out these lyrics from that song. I chase the wind of a prism ship to taste the sweet and sour. The pattern juggler lifts his hand. The orchestra begin. As slowly turns the grinding wheel in the court of the Crimson King. Zinch much? Seriously.
Yeah. Prism ship. Prisms are triangles. Pyramids are 3-dimensional triangles.
They bend light to your will. Like they refract light into all its colors and change it.
To taste the sweet and sour, that makes me think of the warp being everything and nothing at the same time. Pattern jugglers, well, in this book, there's a description of this perfectly circular room. There's like down to the atom, perfectly circular room that is just laced with patterns all over the place to help guide the warp in a certain way inside this special chamber. And
it's certainly reminiscent of like psychic abilities and the changer of ways.
Yeah, and pattern juggling also has, to me, it makes me think a little bit about magic.
Yeah, someone who's actually trying to create an illusion of some kind.
Yeah, and as slowly turns the grinding wheel, well, the Thousand Suns are part of the Chaos Space Marines, and well, they are slowly trying to destroy the universe or bring the false god emperor to destruction, that kind of thing. So yeah, I've never heard of I've heard of King Crimson, but I've never really listened to their music. But this one is a really nice find, actually.
It's cool. It's really cool. I wouldn't have known if I hadn't read Stephen King, and there is a Crimson King character in that book, and I'm also kind of a Pink Floyd fan, and anybody who's a fan of Pink Floyd knows who King Crimson is. So after all that setup, we start to get to know the Thousand Suns, and we meet Amu's Temec. And that's when we learn that the Thousand Suns are blasting through the warp and poised to attack the Fang.
We're presented with a bit about the Rubric Marines, how they were made, and it's also kind of fun to see how these Thousand Suns sorcerers are actually talking about Eriman, because they think he's the biggest idiot there ever was.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, simply because Eriman tried to protect the Thousand Suns from the influences of the warp, and he sort of succeeded and sort of failed, because he turned most of the Legion into dust and just empty armor that's being controlled by sorcerers, because it's the only way they can sort of sense what's going on is by the help of sorcerers. But even though he sort of succeeded in protecting the Thousand Suns, they're still being corrupted by the warp. They're still being physically corrupted. So he still pretty much failed in every way. Just probably takes a little longer now. And, they're just going to have to live with it, even though Eriman is the guy who did everything that's gone wrong with these guys.
Yeah, these characters really kind of have a great. They do a great job of kind of setting the stage for where the Thousand Sons are at right now and how they feel about the situation and why they're doing what they're doing. Temec, I can't decide from the text who's actually in charge of the operation, either Temec or Raphael. Raphael shows up during this scene, and he's a sorcerer lord, and they talk about their battle plans. But I think the most interesting thing about these two is that they seem to be a reflection of Greylock and Ironhelm. The sorcerer lord Raphael, who later on ends up being the one to lead the ground forces, he's in it for revenge. He wants nothing more than to cause pain and destruction to the Space Wolves. It's his main driving force, revenge for what happened. Temec, on the other hand, let me give you a quote here. Causing them pain will not bring them back, meaning the rest of the Thousand Sons. But if we have been so diminished that our only remaining satisfaction is in their destruction, then it will have to do. Like he really doesn't he doesn't believe that revenge itself is a worthy goal of the Thousand Sons. He believes that they're above it. Where Raphael is, all he cares about is the destruction of the wolves. And I thought this was a really interesting parallel, and it's surprising that such intelligent creatures can goad the wolves with that same attitude into attacking them when they also seem to be making the same similar mistakes. And it seems to me that Magnus, if he is the orchestrator of this operation, if he knows this, and if the operation itself isn't the goal. Do you get what I'm saying, Snorri?
Oh, yes. And you haven't read it completely to the end, right? By the time you finish this, you will see the entire picture, but there's definitely something more going on here than just the ground war and the battle up in space.
Yeah.
It is definitely clear that this is a huge gamble for the Space Wolves, because they're sending everything. No. This is definitely this is definitely a gamble for the Space Wolves, because they're sending just about everything they have to chase down Magnus the Red, and they're leaving almost nothing behind in case something bad happens. And Greylock knows that this is most likely a trap, and he's alone to defend the planet if something happens. Which he probably thinks that this is a case of when it happens. Right. But for the Thousand Sons, you have the exact same situation, because they've left a few people back on Gungava Prime and sent almost everything they have to Fenris to try to destroy the place as best they can and achieve whatever ultimate goal they have of invading this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a mirror match, most definitely.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, there's the Space Wolves and the Thousand Sons in this book do seem to have a lot in common, which I'm sure either side would very much disagree with.
Yeah, and also I'm pretty sure that I would nominate Temec as the overall commander, because if you look at the way Temec and Raphael are talking to each other, there is a certain, it seems like Raphael is disposable to Temec. Temec doesn't really care. Yes. He's like, okay, you're going to do this, but you're probably going to die.
Especially since Temec notices Raphael is starting to change.
Yeah, that too. So yeah, but what is a Space Marines battle book without some civilians?
Oh yeah, no, definitely civilians to help ground us.
Yeah,
to help
give
add
a
some
more
humanity
human.
to this
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Give a more human aspect to the whole story.
I don't think they get much more human than Freya Morrickborn. She is fiery. She is very, very self-reliant. Well, which I guess is built into anyone born on Fenris.
Yeah, well, she's from a death world,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, and later on, there's a quote. I forget exactly how it says, but pity is as rare as charity on a death world, or something like that.
yeah,
No one's gonna give you anything, you know. No one's gonna. It's you have to survive. Even later, you see children throwing grenades at Chaos Space Marines, like,
yeah.
and laughing about it. Like, that is what it's like to be someone who lives on a death world.
Yeah, but both Freya and her father Morak, they are above, in a way, they are above the normal, or well, normal people, or the regular people on Fenris, because these are all people who live in the Fang as
Mhm.
pretty much servants, but they I wouldn't call them servants because these guys or these people are not like uniforms and bringing food and everything. These are basically the people who keep or maintain the Fang. They are digging out the tunnels, exploring, and
Defending it.
defending exactly.
There in the book, there are a few times they're referred to as thralls as well, which this
Yeah,
does have a negative connotation, but it's not really meant as negative.
but a thrall is not a slave.
No,
A thrall has a certain freedom that a slave doesn't.
they're
So
there because they want to be, and they revere the thing that they're defending.
it's a bit like being an indentured servant, being there because you have to, but you're still given more freedom than a slave is. But these people are definitely there because they want to, because for these people, it's an honor to be a guard in the Fang.
And Morik certainly, Freya's father Morik really reflects that, where Freya breaks the mold in that she's kind of standoffish about the what they call the Sky Warriors. She her story actually opens up with her having a dream about choking out a blood claw in the fighting pits, which she could never actually do. She's just a human, but she has these dreams of kind of grandeur almost where she can be as powerful as them. She reveres them in more of a jealous way than she does the others. She often gets in trouble for shooting her mouth off.
Yeah, she's kind of pissed off that these space wolves, in many ways, she feels that they have lost their humanity in a certain way because they used to be humans, but after they received the helix, they seem to, or she thinks that they are above people, and she sees them still as just normal people, enhanced.
Which is probably why she dreams about a blood claw, because their blood claws are kind of the newly formed, and they're kind of assholes.
Yeah, they're the newly minted space wolves, and they are definitely the most crazy ones.
Yeah. So it's interesting, and her father actually tells her to watch her freaking mouth.
Yeah.
You know. So as the preparations cycle up, Ironhelm actually asks Sturmyart, the rune priest, to watch over Wormblade and the Fang while they're away. Like we said, Sturmyart is very upset about this.
Yeah, but Arnhelm, manages to convince Stormyard about this because he says, Stormyard, you're the only person I actually trust to look over Wormblade as he continues with these experiments. I'm not sure if he's trying to just sweet talk him a little bit into doing this, or if he actually trusts him that much.
But he says, like, above anybody else, you're the one I can trust.
Yeah.
That's what he tells him.
And
and lying doesn't really come naturally to these guys, so I would assume it's true.
Yeah. no matter what the intentions were, they definitely work, and Sturmyart does the job that he's been tasked with, even though somewhat grudgingly.
Well, don't worry about him, folks. He's going to get to kill a bunch of dudes later. He'll be fine. Don't feel sorry for him.
Yeah. And I think that the Space Wolf that remain on Fenris actually gets much more out of this entire situation than the people who go off to chase down Magnus the Red, because these guys are totally outmatched in numbers, and they get to kill so much stuff. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. So also continuing with the preparations, we meet Hakon Gylfason. Gylfason?
Hakon Gylfason.
I think that this format we have, where I try to pronounce it and then you tell me how it's pronounced, is perfect. I think we should keep doing
this week in Adam Butcher's Norse names.
But he's called Blackwing, thank God. That's much easier. He's a pretty cool character. Someone I was not expecting to meet in this book. He's a wolf scout, and he really specializes in like space operations. He's really cool. Maybe a little too cool for school. You know what I'm saying, Snorri?
He specializes in interstellar operations because he hates being on Fenris or any other planet. Actually, he just
anywhere else where there's people or space wolves or if anything at all.
Yeah, if he has to leave his ship, he gets pissed off.
Yeah. And he finds out that some other Jarl has decided that they want his ship. And
his in quotation marks. Definitely.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Nothing really, and the one of the human has to actually, or no, not the human, but the wolf priest who talks to him after he kind of blows up a little bit, tells him, it's not your ship, it belongs to the Imperium. And Blackwing's like, no, it's my ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the wolf priests tells him no. So we've assigned, he's been assigned to someone else. You're actually going to take the Nauro and run patrol in this system while the fleet is away.
Yeah, and I guess we should talk a little bit about the Nauro, because the Nauro is quite a specialized ship, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's rather small, just 500 crew. I feel that's kind of big, but
in
even
40K terms, not so much.
And
it's a scout. Basically.
Even in modern terms, an aircraft carrier is a massive ship. It's kind of small, right. But there's over 2,000 people on board in that thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
and it's a third of the ship is sublight engines. That is bonkers.
Yeah, this thing is built for speed, and one of the few people who knows how to coax every inch of power from this thing is Blackwing.
That's right. So we decided to make some stats for the Nauro. Which is available on your tabletop number 11, Battle of the Fang, which you can download from our website. It's got lots of maneuvers. I'm not going to go into all of them, but it can move up to 5 red, which is really, really fast. And it's also capable of several banking green maneuvers and long black maneuvers as well. So it's really fast. It's only got 2 lances. But it's got 3 agility, which is really high, 3 hull, which is not too bad for a scout, and 2 shields. Now there's like a non-named version which has only 2 hull and 1 shields, but it's a lot cheaper. It has a special rule that lets it brace for impact as a free action, and it may do so multiple times in a turn. So it can take a free action, or it can also use it as its regular action. And it can fire its lances in all 3 arcs. So this is a really fast little ship with some really good survivability. Now we've also created a card for Blackwing.
Håkon Gylfason, a wolf scout. after revealing his movement dial and measuring, Blackwing's ship may instead choose a different maneuver. This maneuver must be a green maneuver.
So he basically gets to change his mind about which way he's going, but he can only do so in a short distance. So this lets him kind of, if a ship kind of moves out in his way, or another ship kind of moves to a bad position for him, he can actually change his maneuver and either try to get out of weapons arc or get behind an obstacle or something like that. And Blackwing also has a captain skill of 8, and he's 4 points. Hopefully that gives everyone a little more variety in their Battlefleet 40K ships and cards. We'll just keep adding these as we go. Right, and we'll see how we'll use him and his ship later as we go through the book.
Yes. As the Space Wolf fleet finishes assembling, they leave for Gangava, and in the process leaving Greylock and Bloodclaws behind.
Which is probably a good idea when you're going on a deadly mission like that.
Yeah, it's always nice to have fresh blood back home, but it is also all nice to have only yes-sayers.
Yeah. And also, like, they're the future of the chapter, so I wouldn't like use them for every operation or even the most dangerous missions personally. I'm not sure how they actually do it, but only bringing them on some missions is probably a good idea.
This is also when we get to meet Hellfist and Redpelt, 2 of these Bloodclaws.
Yeah, they're in the fighting cages, knocking the crap out of each other. They're even using weapons. I don't think we've seen weapons being used in other fighting cages in these books, have we?
Yeah, they use training weapons, often like made of wood or metal, enough to you get bruised, but they won't cut your arm off. Space Wolves, well, they will easily draw blood, but still not lethal. Though I guess that you can easily kill someone with them still.
Right, and I never really understood how tough it is for the Bloodclaws to eventually, to start overcoming the Helix and the Wolf Within. Really see when these two guys fight, they nearly knock each other out. They knock each other pretty much almost to death, almost, if there wasn't a Wolf Guard there to break them up.
Yeah.
And what's funny is after one of them beats the other one up, there's no bad blood.
Yeah.
There's no bad feelings.
They're basically just hand out, help each other up, carry each other, or support each other out of the cage, and there's like laughs and but it's like, oh, you did really good, but I kind of let you win, kind of jokes.
You're too slow.
Yeah, exactly. They make jokes about why the other won, and they're pretty friendly about it.
Yeah, and
but
it harkens back to the conversation between the priests also.
Yeah, that as much as they may hate each other because you beat me, they never seem to let it get out of hand. It's always for fun.
Yeah, and that's really kind of different from what we've seen with the Black Dragons and the Ultramarines. Sometimes those chapters use the fighting cages as a way to settle grudges, and you really haven't. At least I haven't so far. Seen it with the Space Wolves. So pretty much almost immediately after the fleet leaves, the Thousands show up.
Yeah,
which is pretty great.
Yeah, and of course the book would have been really short if it wasn't for the whole astropathic choir on Fenris.
Yes.
To basically just have their brains melt as the Thousand Suns arrive.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for them.
It's actually a really cool part of the book, just the whole description. This psyker, so he's blind, he wakes up, gets dressed, walks out of his
great way of showing how they live.
Yeah, he just walks out of his room, makes his way towards the choir, picks up the orders of the day, gets comfy in his chair, even though it's really uncomfortable because he kind of complains about it being cold and uncomfy, and
puts his helmet on.
Yeah, and everything seems to be kind of weird. There's this itching sensation, And then suddenly it's like his headache gets worse, and he wakes up with his headache, but he doesn't really think about it. It's like, it's just a bad day. And the headache gets worse and worse, and suddenly he opens himself up to the warp as part of his mantra, and everything just burns, and yeah, he's bleeding from every single orifice and just dies, screaming.
His brain is melted.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting how he, though, described the presence that killed them as being very much like the Emperor. Because the astropaths feel the light of the Astronomicon every day. And if anybody knows what the Emperor feels like, it's them.
Yeah. And that's, I'm pretty sure that the person who kills them, or the presence who kills them, is Magnus the Red, because he is ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, definitely. So I thought that the space battle was really cool. There's some awesome descriptions in there. I was really impressed with how the author Chris Raitt really put a lot of nice prose together to give us a feeling of the massive size of these ships and how their movements were really brought to life by his writing.
Yeah.
Something that I really appreciate because I'm a big fan of spaceship combat and stuff like that. So it was very cool. I definitely recommend this book, even just on that point itself.
Yeah, and I really liked the whole setup for this battle, that just before the Thousand Suns come out of the warp, there's a conversation between Raphael and Temec about just how close to Fenris they're actually coming out. Because Temec is like, yep, we're coming out of the warp now, and we're going to come out really close to the planet so that we can jump right into the midst, blast everything apart, and then we own everything. Because they have nothing left in orbit to defend themselves with. And Raphael's like, dude, I know we're really good at this whole psyker thing, but are you sure that we're doing this in a safe manner? These are probably the best psykers ever in power armor, and some of them are actually a little bit unsure if they will actually survive this jump.
Yeah, that's a little nuts from what I understand of warp travel, but it really does the job because they tear in there and there is almost no defense. Even if they'd lost a few ships in the jump, they made up for it by completely dominating space very quickly. That's not to say that the defenders didn't put up a fight.
Yeah, these are Fenrisians we're talking about, and even though the defense platforms around the planet are manned by, well, quote-unquote humans, these guys are not giving up at all. We're given scenes of space platforms basically beginning to fail, blowing up, but all that the people controlling these platforms are thinking is that I've got to get that last shot off, even if it kills me. I could go to these escape pods, but that's a sign of weakness. We have them for show, nothing else. They will never be used.
I really liked it when the perspective character ordered the escape pods to be brought online. Everybody on the bridge turns and looks at him like, say what now?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. Start maneuvering the station to point the escape pods at the incoming Thunderhawks.
Yeah.
And they shoot the escape pods at the Thunderhawks.
Yep.
It was awesome.
That is a desperate move, and it pays off.
Yeah, they destroy one of them. The odds are staggering that they would kill any. And they do destroy one of the Thunderhawks, which is basically a priceless machine full of priceless warriors. So that was like one of my favorite scenes in the book. And here's the thing. Here's the most important thing about this entire section. Currently my favorite Space Wolf curse is Mordecai's hairy balls. From now on, When I want to curse like a space wolf, I'm going to say Mordecai's hairy balls.
I think there's a T-shirt in that.
Yes. Oh, so we have a scenario, right, Snorri?
Yes, we do, because this space battle is actually one of the really important points in the book. And, well, we can't really let such an important point go without giving it the treatment.
For all the new scenarios we present for Battle of the Fang, if you want to run them as the actual events in Battle of the Fang, the Space Wolves should be considered the defender.
Yeah. And, even if you don't want to have Thousand Suns versus Space Wolves, one side should be the defender for the entire campaign if you run this as a sequential campaign.
That's right.
The first scenario is Escape of the Courier, and it's a Battlefleet 40k scenario. It is imperative that one vessel must break through the battle lines and make its way to reinforcements. For the Battlefleet 40k rules, check our website.
Yes. So the forces here are one force is considered the defender and the other attacker. The attacker boasts half again as many points as the defender. For example, if you play a 100-point game, the attacker may take 150 points. The defender designates one ship as the courier, which, if you're running Battle of the Fang, is the Nauro.
The terrain is quite simple. You have one planet added to the board touching the defender's table edge. And, if you're playing this as Battle of the Fang, you can always use a white dinner plate to represent Fenris.
That works
Probably
perfectly.
right
That was
color.
a great idea, Snorri. That was Snorri's idea. What a great idea. It's the perfect size, and it's white.
It's the perfect shape, and it's white, yes. And, of course, we're big supporters of ghetto gaming.
Oh, yes. Oh, for sure. So the defender will deploy anywhere within range 1 of the planet, and the attacker then deploys within range 1 of their table edge. The defender does not deploy the courier. Before we move on with the scenario, one of the things you may want to deploy with your Imperial force are some platforms, some space platforms. So an Imperial defense platform is a orbital station. I added some space station stats. Basically, they can move in any direction, and they can choose to not move at all. That's pretty much. And they can fire all of their weapons through their primary arc. So that's just a generic space station rules.
The platform has 2 lance attacks at firepower 2. It has 0 agility, 4 hull, and 2 shields.
And it can only move one, like a movement of 1 in any direction. But since it's an orbital space station, it can never maneuver beyond range 2 of the planet. And if it does, it just stops right before that limit. And it's also got an all-around firepower. It's 13 points. It's a very simple thing to add to your fleet, but it's really only very helpful. It's really only very helpful in narrative games where you're going to have a certain layout. And it certainly will be helpful in this scenario if you're trying to keep the enemy away from the planet while your ship is trying to break away.
You have a couple of special rules for this scenario. The first one is hulks. When a ship is destroyed, remove the ship from the base, but leave the base on the board. This base is treated as a standard obstacle.
Yep, and in this game, in the path system, an obstacle is basically it gives you an extra die to roll when you're defending if it's between you and the enemy, and it also might causes a hit against you if you fly into it.
The next rule is the courier. The ship designated as the courier arrives in play at the start of turn 2 on its initiative step. Its maneuver template is placed anywhere touching the planet, and any of the ship's maneuvers may be used. The courier may also use the take cover action. And the action take cover is the third rule for this scenario. The courier may use other vessels for cover. When a ship fires upon the courier receives 1 additional defense die for each ship base they must draw range through.
Yes. Normally you don't get cover for firing through ships because they're so tiny, but you're actually taking an action to fly closer to the enemy ships and to actually put ships between you and the firing enemies. The victory conditions for this scenario are very simple. The defender wins if the courier exits the far table edge. The attacker wins if it does not, if it's basically destroyed. This is very simplistic, very non-competitive scenarios. So I wouldn't suggest adding this to your list of competitive scenarios for tournaments. But it basically very much represents what goes on in space. The only thing that's important is that scout get word to Ironhelm, because everybody else is dead. There's the fleet that's left behind has no hope to fight against the fleet that has been amassed by the Thousand Suns.
Yep. It's basically try to do as much damage as you can and hope that you can cripple as much of the enemy or the attacking fleet as possible before you die yourself.
Yep, that's true. So we're going to take a quick break, give everybody a chance to rest their ears, and a chance for us to also
wet our whistles?
Wet our whistles with our nuclear vessels. And Wendy, take it away.
Dallas Fort Worth Nerd Night is a community organization that throws tabletop gaming parties for charity. We believe tabletop gamers are uniquely qualified to build better local communities because of the types of relationships built while gaming. If you'd like to learn more about how you can play games and help people with DFW Nerd Night, check out www.dfwnn.org. That's www.dfwnn.org. Thanks.
I just had this nice little piece from the book that I want to read because it sets up where we're going next just so beautifully. Ahead of them, they saw the chamber yawn away into the distance, vaster than any cathedral, lit only by racks of blood-red fire in man-high braziers of iron. And at the far end, most brightly lit of all, there was the mightiest of all the many statues, the colossal image of Leman Russ. The size of a warhound titan, the granite Primarch gazed across the space with a snarl on his craggy features. He had his sword Mjolnir clutched in one hand, the other was clenched into a balled fist. Other Primarchs might have been rendered in a more contemplative pose, but not Russ. He had been carved by the Stone Shapers as he had been in life, an engine of war, a living god, a rolling, consuming furnace of violent, focused kill urge.
And that's the Fang Thane. That's where all of the big gatherings of the Fenrika gather. Yeah, that was a really cool passage. I thought it really summarized things very well and kind of gives people a visual representation of what it's like to be someone who lives here and is born here.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes about just how the Space Wolves are.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, in the Fang Thane, Greylock gives this, which is kind of centered deep within the Fang, not deep as in under the mountain, but in the mountain, about halfway down and halfway in. It's like it's basically the heart of the mountain, really. So Greylock gives a big rousing speech, and everybody's cheering. He's basically telling them these Thousand Suns, this attacking force, are interlopers. They're coming to test you. They're coming to test your mettle, and you're going to show them that they're not welcome here. And I think it's funny how the humans are very excited that the Sky Warriors are going to fight among them. I think that above everything else, like, yeah, there's a big scary war coming, whatever. I'm really excited that I get to fight with my heroes. my gods, you know?
Yeah, but above them, something pretty terrifying is actually about to happen.
Mhm.
Because as the Thousand Suns clear away all the defending platforms and all the defending Space Wolf ships are destroyed, they are lining up one really nasty ship. It's completely defenseless in itself, and they've held it back for a while, but as there's nothing to threaten it anymore, it positions itself above the Fang and opens up its plasma reactors.
Yeah, I think they're lances
Yeah,
by the Battlefleet rules, but yeah, they're like plasma fires, like beams, columns of basically pure plasma shooting from space into the Fang.
yes. Thankfully, the Fang has void shields, which are so powerful that there's no chance for this plasma to actually harm anything. But it's not there to harm anything, it's just there to prevent any kind of ship launching from the Fang.
Yeah.
And it's
Or
successful.
missiles, or like
Yeah.
any artillery shot out of the Fang would be vaporized immediately by the cascading lances coming from space.
Yes, and this is something that worries these non-Space Marines in the Fang. The Space Marines are like, whatever. But the humans are a little bit worried, but they realize that there's no danger in this, but it still worries them that it's basically raining fire.
So I guess we should talk about the overwhelming force which begins to land on planet.
Yeah. The first waves are basically cultists from 1,000 worlds having been gathered up and trained in cold weather conditions, given enough equipment to survive on Fenris, because the altitude, the air is so thin that you can't live without rebreathers, basically oxygen masks. And these mortals are being called the Spire Guard, but as we talked about before, the Spire Guard were elite PDF forces from Prospero. But there's no Spire Guard left at this point, as far as I can tell. These are basically people who are being called Spire Guard, but there's an undertone of mocking in the way they're being referred to as Spire Guard.
Yeah. They're pale reflections of the actual Spire Guard.
Yes.
They certainly have morale issues. Like, these folks are sure there was great care taken in selecting humans who are born and live on worlds that are very much like Fenris, or at least areas of worlds, cities that are built in areas like Fenris, but they certainly don't have very much gall. They're nothing compared to the Folka Fenica.
Yeah, and also the Thousand Sun Sorcerers talk about, oh, well, you're too young to know what a Spire Guard is, but, it's something that matters to us, and we've chosen to call you Spire Guard because it's sort of an honorific, and, you serve the same purpose, sort of.
Yeah, it's like if you named your dog General Patton, like,
in a way.
So there's about 2 million troops landing, and about 600 rubric marines, which is actually kind of a lot. Including they have cataphracts, which are, anybody who's trawled the Forge World site knows what those are.
Yeah, and in this case, they are armed mining automata.
Yes, they have plasma cannons and digging equipment. So we know they've come prepared. At least they've come prepared.
Yes, because they're pretty sure that they predicted what the Space Wolves will do to defend themselves, knowing that the Space Wolves are completely outmanned on this planet. Committing 600 rubric marines doesn't seem like that many, considering we're talking about the Thousand Suns Legion, but at the same time, you realize that they're actually committing almost everything they have that they can spare. There's not much left on Gangava Prime, so it's now you're starting to see just how big this gamble is.
Right. And I'm still not entirely convinced that about how much the Thousand Sons are committing here, though. We're made to believe that 600 is of the what's left, right, of the Rubric Marines, but I'm still not entirely convinced that that's true. But I guess we'll see as we explore this story. One thing I noticed about the bulk of the Thousand Sons is that they actually have Terminator armor rubricae, which they can be represented by just saying Zinch Terminators. But I felt like it would be great if we came up with a way of really showing these tough, strange, almost soulless warriors on the tabletop. Do you want to give the listeners a rundown of what we've come up with?
That I can. Some elite Thousand Sons warriors survived Prospero, but only by either a very generous or sarcastic standard. Please note that the Aspiring Sorcerer is exactly the same as the one in the Chaos Space Marines Thousand Sons entry in that codex. But we've left it out from our supplement because we don't want to get on the bad side of Games Workshop.
Yeah.
So assume that the sorcerer has the exact same stats and options as the one from the book, and then you take this Terminator rubricae that we're going to present to you as our own creation.
Yes. So the stats for Terminator rubricae are Weapon Skill 5, Ballistic Skill 4, Strength 4, Toughness 4, 2 Wounds, Initiative 4, Attacks 2, Leadership 10, 2+ save. Their battlefield role is elite, and they are faction Chaos Space Marines. That much should be obvious. And they're 210 points for this particular starting unit composition.
The rubricae are infantry, and the Aspiring Sorcerer is infantry character. And when you pay 210 points, you get 3 Terminators and 1 Aspiring Sorcerer.
That's right. Their war gear is Terminator armor, Combi Bolter, Power Weapon, Inferno Bolts, which can be found in the Chaos Space Marines Codex. It's basically AP3. Slow and Purposeful, which replaces their the Terminator armor's Relentless ability, and Elite of the Thousand Sons. The Elite of the 1,000 Sons is basically they enjoy the aura of Dark Glory just like the 1,000 Sons, but instead of their invulnerable save being 5+, it's a 4+.
Their options are as follows. They may add up to 7 Terminator rubricae for 55 points per model. For every 5 models in the unit, 1 Terminator rubricae may replace his Combi Bolter with one of the following: a Heavy Flamer for 10 points per model, or a Reaper Autocannon for 25 points per model. The Aspiring Sorcerer may replace his Power Armor with Terminator Armor for 20 points.
So they don't have as many options as a regular Terminator. They're basically representing very basic troops from the Heresy era who are... I would actually even use the Cataphracti Terminator armor for these guys if I were doing it, or if there is some kind of bits you can pull from the Horus Heresy collection to build these guys. That's what I would probably use. I would even go so far as to say, hey, why don't I just add maybe one of the weird heavy weapons from the Horus Heresy to this unit as well, because why not? It's not going to hurt anything.
So Terminators dual-wielding conversion beamers?
Let's not go that far.
Okay.
No.
I was hoping
the Terminator armor, not the Cataphracti Dreadnought. Or Cataphract Terminator armor, whatever it's called.
The Cataphracti Terminator, yeah. That's something that actually confused me a little bit when I was reading this, because every time they were talking about the Cataphracts, I was thinking Cataphracti Terminators. I'm like, no, wait, they're different.
The 1,000 Sons start dropping in. Now, the closest drop sites are not very heavily fortified. They drop in and they start trying to set up fortifications, but of course the Space Wolves have already rushed out to meet them.
Yeah. These initial sites, while they may seem to be throwing people there just to delay the Space Wolves and prevent them from going after the actual sites, it does seem like these initial landing sites are intended to be established as proper sites eventually. But for the early part of this battle, it's the poorly equipped, poorly trained cannon fodder that is being sent there to get slaughtered by the wolves.
Yep.
And
It's
what a
basically
party that is!
A
Oh, yes.
distraction so that the Thousand Suns can drop in the proper site, which is a little ways off, a longer march, but who cares when you have 2 million troops?
Yeah, there's always someone you can throw in there and just go like, yeah, I don't like you. Get lost.
Yeah, so
Die.
in these scenes, you really see some of the heroic / dumb things Space Marines get up to, especially the Blood Claws. Blood Claws do some crazy heroic stuff involving the landers and just tearing up these poor mortals. So many humans die in this book.
And it is a really fun scene when these blood claws just jump into one of the landers' spaceships, and the ship is trying to take off while these people are just ripping out panels, clawing at cables, jumping into the cockpit, throwing a hand grenade in there, jumping through the windscreen of the cockpit while the thing is crashing to the ground, going like, I'm going to surf this thing down to the ground and just roll off. Wait, that's not going to work really well, so this is going to hurt. Okay, so I broke a few legs, but I'm still alive.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, he jumps off and breaks his leg. He's like, "Ow, that hurt," and he walks away. Like, what? Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how many guys did you kill? 50, 60. How many did I kill? 50, 60, and a spaceship.
In a spaceship.
Yeah.
That only counts as one.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to make the same reference. It really feels like a certain elf and a certain dwarf from a certain fantasy movie.
Yep. So yeah, it's a really, really interesting battle. Now, one of the cool things that happens is this parallel between the commanders of two units. One commander is Rossick. He's in command of the some Grey Hunters, and also Brack, who's in charge of the Blood Claws. Rossick comes upon some Rubric Marines. I think this is the first time the Space Wolves take note of the Rubric Marines, and they receive a communique saying, "No, listen, these initial drops are fake. You need to fall back. We're gonna dig ourselves in at the Fang." He shuts off the communique and says, "No, we're killing these guys." Disobeys orders, sends his men in. Everyone dies except him.
And one other guy.
Yeah, and one other guy is like almost dead. And they're saved by a group by another patrol. On the other head of that coin, in the Blood Claws unit, Hellfist and Red Pelt, along with the rest of the Blood Claws, want to go after a unit of Rubric Marines. They want to tear them up. But Brack, the Wolf Guard, does not disobey orders. He verbally cuffs them across the head and says, "No, let's go." And to the point where he actually, tells Hellfist if he openly argues with him again, he'll rip his throat out. So it's really interesting how the differences between these two commanders are highlighted here, and it follows through later on in the book. So we made a little scenario, haven't we, Snorri?
More scenarios.
More bringing the world of Warhammer 40,000 to life on your tabletop.
It's kind of weird that we do that thing. It's almost like it was sort of one of the things we try to do in this podcast. Yep. The next scenario is called Guerrilla Strike.
Yes. Again, we try to make these scenarios as generic as possible, but this is definitely something you could use if you wanted to represent the Battle of the Fang on your tabletop as a whole. I would do these. What do you think, Snorri? I would do multiples of these guerrilla strike scenarios if your group is trying to kind of represent this, because it's happening all over the planet.
And try different lists. Maybe have some more of a mechanized landing and some with more of a infantry heavy landing.
Yeah.
Maybe a landing with some space marines in them, and just mix it up and see what happens.
Yeah, or even have even allow the attacker to have like a Thunderhawk gunship or something sitting on the ground, and give it like a liftoff countdown, and maybe you roll the turn, and then if you roll at or on or below the turn, you actually get to activate the Thunderhawk. Something like that. It would be interesting to see.
Yeah. The whole point of this mission is that when an enemy invades your home, you will use whatever resources you have at your disposal to show them how grave a mistake that is.
Yeah, you will. So it's best used. This is really best used in smaller games. Because the players are representing small forces of defenders ambushing elements of an enemy interloper. So you're not going to take your small forces and go against a really, really big force. You're going to pick and choose your battles. You're not going. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to harry a large force on a flank, which still has like 10 times your number.
Yeah,
so,
it's not about 10 Space Wolves going after 3,000 points of Imperial Guard.
No.
That's
even though those
stupid.
are the numbers, they're actually going to pick a weak point, just like wolves do in the wild. They're going to take the weakest of the prey and bring it down.
Yep.
So we're suggesting about 750 point lists, with the attackers getting 1,000 points.
Yeah, sorry. You can always do a slightly larger games if you want to, but then it would be probably 1,000 points for the defender, 1,500 for the attacker. Yeah. It should be reasonable. Mm-hmm. We recommend a battlefield of about a 4x4 table, and it should be covered in terrain, most suited for the scenario. So if you're fighting on Fenris, snowdrifts, you could have, say, barricades or something representing snowdrifts. Yeah. Or if you're fighting on a desert, or sorry, on a jungle planet, you should have a bunch of trees there. Mm-hmm. But it should be about just setting up the mood for an ambush.
Yep. We have one mission special rule, which is a really cool one that Snorri came up with. It's a home field. All of the defenders' units receive stealth and move through cover special rules. Now, I added that if the unit has infiltrate, they instead enjoy shrouded. In addition, the defending player enjoys one additional warp charge dice in each of their psychic phases, or in each of the psychic phases. So it's basically just cementing the fact that the defender knows the terrain, knows where to go, knows when to attack, knows when not to attack.
The deployment type is Dawn of War, and the first turn is randomly rolled to determine who goes first. The game length is standard random game length.
So the primary objective of this mission is for the defender. The defender receives 2 victory points for each destroyed enemy unit. Now the attacker receives 3 victory points for each held objective at the end of the game, and there are 4 objectives placed for this mission.
The secondary objectives are the usual Slay the Warlord, First Blood, and Linebreaker, which are each worth 1 victory point for the defender. Linebreaker is worth 3 points for the attacker.
Yes.
And that's the scenario.
Yeah, so I think it's simple, which is kind of important for little games anyways, especially if you're going to be playing them multiple times throughout a session. So the wounded start pouring in as the Space Wolves fall back to the Fang. We get a interesting scene where Morik, who is Freya's father, is tasked with the life of a wounded Space Wolf. He brings him up to an infirmary, which is right near where the tempering project is being worked on, and he takes a wrong turn when he goes up there and finds hairless space wolves either dead or deep in stasis. Now,
in tanks of fluids.
yeah. So he really couldn't tell whether they're alive or not, but they're floating there, no hair, or just like a regular amount of hair, no fangs, very not wolfy space marines, and he is completely stricken by this.
Yeah, the fact that there's a dead space wolf on a operating table in there. It's like, why is he cut open and apparently not being worked on surgically to fix him, but apparently to explore? Yeah. This scares the crap out of the guy, and he just runs out of there and just hopes no one notices that he was in there in the first place.
Yeah, and that's really crazy. I think, first of all, I love the fact that the Imperium is so set in its trust in the faith of its people, that especially at the Fang, right, where no one even questions the loyalty of the people, or the morale of the people, but he just waltzes into this super secret laboratory. What are you doing?
But he wasn't supposed to be there in the first place if it wasn't for being tasked with transporting this space marine, who's this is actually Rosek's final living team member. And Rosek just looks at him and is like, if he dies, your life is forfeit. And Morek just does what he does best, and that is, as a Fenrisian, tries to survive.
Yeah. So this is an interesting turn where we start seeing more parallels crop up, and this one is between not parallels, but like a mirror. It's not in this book. It's all mirrors rather than parallels, where Morek starts to question his iron faith, where his daughter's faith begins to be strengthened, and that's where we start hearing about Freya and her team as they perform the tasks that have been set to them.
Yeah, that's a fun part of the book, because Freya and her team are being tasked to an Iron Priest to go into the depths of the Fang, past the forges, and into the halls of the Fallen, where they keep their honored dead, Bjorn and his buddies.
I think that the forges are a really cool piece of descriptive text in here, because it's basically they're walking over these catwalks and stuff, and you see these giant forges where servitors are just toiling and hammering endlessly for eternity. And at first, when they were talking about the waking the restless or the sleeping dead or whatever, I thought they were talking about the servitors, but that's not true. They pass the servitors and start walking deeper into the mountain. Where there are things lurking that should not see the light of day.
Oh yes, because the reason why Freya and her soldiers are there in the first place are simply to guard this Iron Priest and his servitors, so that they can wake up these dreadnoughts. And lurking in the shadows are some wolf-like things that are,
Let's not beat around the bush, Snorri. Nobody's stupid.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just throw away everything and just say that, yep, there's a wolf down there, or basically they're big wolf down there. And some of them seem to have bits and pieces of what looks like power armor on them.
And cybernetics, yes.
Yes.
Yes, this is the dumping ground for the failed space wolves. It's very, very sad.
Is it a dumping ground, or is it just where they congregate themselves? Because, that's... I'm not sure if it's because there are dreadnoughts down there, but... it's an interesting theory that these sort of completely lost space marines are gathering in the same place, in the same deep, dark place as where the Space Wolves keep the dreadnoughts. Maybe the dreadnoughts are being stored there because there are wolf in there.
There does seem to be some kind of glimmer of intelligence left, even though they do attack Freya's squad and kill several people. When Bjorn, the Fell-handed, steps out of that crypt, they shirk back. They bow in respect to Bjorn, and they stop their attack. Now the Iron Priest is very impressed with Freya and her men, obviously able to protect the servitors while they did their work. But Freya is pissed. She is not happy that her men lives were lost so that they could bring robots into the fight. Is that what we've done?
Yeah, she probably feels quite expendable, and she doesn't like the idea at all.
No, she thinks that she is a daughter of Russ. She is an important member of the society, and that's her goes back to her believing that she should be an equal to the Space Wolf, to the Sky Warriors. But after they start a long and arduous trip back up through the Fang, and she starts talking to she starts talking to one of the dreadnoughts. Not Bjorn. She doesn't deign to speak to him, but there's a newly awoken dreadnought who was a blood
exactly
claw, actually.
A newly interred.
Yeah, newly interred. First time he's been woken up. And he's asking her questions about the world, like, tell me everything about how the world is right now and what's going on. And he's very, very curious. And she's also very curious. And there's several times where he reminds her of the fact that being curious is not healthy for anyone in this universe. But it doesn't stop her. She's a curious person. And she keeps asking him questions. And when she asks him, how does it feel to have your armor fussed over? And do you feel it like we do? And he says, in some ways he can feel it more than he did as a space wolf, as a living creature, because he knows where he's being touched specifically because of sensors on his body and whatever. But in a lot of ways, he'll never feel that way again. And it seems depressing to her, and she actually starts to feel sorry for them. Like she was prepared to feel anger. She's prepared to feel superior. She's prepared to feel the reverence that she should feel. But instead of all that stuff, she just pities them, and she starts to pity the Sky Warriors themselves.
Yeah, because this is a newly interred dreadnought, he's still lucid in many ways. Not as lucid as he was as a living person, but he's still more lucid than the other dreadnoughts. So he also can observe the other dreadnoughts and see what his future is. And I think it bothers him that he was like, I don't like it, but I can't do anything about it. I'm going to be just like the others. And they're basically not mindless drones, but all they can do is wake up, find something to shoot it, shut down again.
Yeah. So
and it really bothers him that he feels that it makes him lose part of what he is.
Yeah. It's a really great scene, or series of scenes, I guess I should say. It's really cool. I liked seeing it, and I liked that these are the kind of scenes that really give you an idea of what it's like to live in the 41st millennium, and really sets the tone for not just this book, but for the fandom as a whole, really. So the Thousand Sons march on the gate.
It's inevitable.
They stand at quite a distance and start bombarding the face of the mountain, destroying as many emplacements as possible, while also taking a lot of damage from the firing of the emplaced weapons. But to be honest, it's a drop in the bucket compared to, compared to what they have at their disposal.
Yeah, the Thousand Suns they have flyers, they have artillery units, they have Lehman Russ tanks,
Sorcerers.
infantry, Space Marines coming in. It's just, so part of the description is that the people almost don't have time to fall down dead before they're being run over by tanks, simply because this inevitable juggernaut of troops is just pushing forward continuously. So there's no time to think about what's going on, because you're going to get trampled and run over by a tank.
Yeah, pretty much.
But to counter this whole implacable advance by the great enemy, as they keep calling them inside the Fang, Sturmyart, the Rune Priest, starts manifesting some seriously hefty psychic powers on Fenris.
Yeah, it almost seems as if he knows he knows the world, and it almost seems like Fenris is helping him fight this enemy.
But not everything's going the Space Wolves' way. Brack, the leader of the Bloodclaw unit, dies when one of his own nearly allows the wolf within to take control. He goes a little bit overboard, and, casualties happen.
Yeah. No, what's really weird about this? Like, when the Thousand Suns eventually make it close enough to the gates, instead of letting them move into that choke point and fight them like Thermopylae, instead they rush out to meet them on the open field. What?
I guess it's the difference between the Ultramarines, for example, and Space Wolves. Yeah. The Space Wolves, they love a good fight, a good sort of fair fight, because taking advantage of certain things is considered to be, I guess, lazy, weak, beneath them or something. Ultramarines would see the tactical benefits of fighting in the chokehold or in the choke point, and just, I don't care if it's dishonorable or whatever. It's the most efficient way to do it, so let's do it that way.
Yeah, and I was like, "This is just silly. This wouldn't happen." But it's later on in the book, it's actually remarked upon. Like, Greylock actually has a thought about, that's why we don't hole ourselves up in the throat, in the choke point. We rushed out to meet the enemy because we are Space Wolves, and we do things differently. I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, okay, well, you were conscious. They consciously, the author consciously was deliberate about their tactics here.
Finally, the Thousand Suns reach the gates and destroy its psychic defenses. The wolves, they fall back and collapse the entrance to the Fang. Yes. Basically, they melt the bomb, the cave, to the point where it collapses, and said, okay, we're just going to sit here, and they are going to have to deal with everything. And they mine the tunnels so that as the Thousand Suns are trying to dig their way through, kablooey, and suddenly a cataphract automata is gone. And they made the point of it. They had 7 of these things come out of a ship in the early landing stages, and one of the Thousand Suns goes like, wow, do we have some of those things? And those 7 are pretty much everything that the Thousand Suns could scavenge, probably throughout the entire galaxy. Yeah. Because they are pretty much extinct at this point.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, functionally extinct is, I think, the term. And I think it's really interesting that the Space Wolves are able to set up booby traps that don't explode, so that they will explode later when they are mined out by the cataphracti, or by the cataphracts automata.
Yeah.
But when they're mined out by the cataphract automata. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
So this entire battle could easily be, written as just a regular like apocalypse mission, using specific models, and people could actually figure this out on their own. I don't think anybody really needs us to come up with a mission for this. So instead, we decided to single out some of the special stuff that happens here and give you rules for that so that you can represent it on your tabletop.
And one of the things that Adam cooked up is heroic psyker rules for Fenris.
Yes. The hope is that we'll be able to use heroic psyker rules in other things later, but we don't really have a frame of reference yet. So for now, it's just for the weird powers of Fenris.
And we call this the Defender of the Fang, and that means any psyker may purchase the ability to harness the Weird of Fenris for 150 points. The first time I read that, it was like, 150 points? Isn't that a little bit high? But as I started reading this, I understand why.
Yeah, and it's generally meant to be a narratively focused ability. We do assign points to it just so the game that's how the game balances things. But it's meant to be very narrative in that I would only use this if you're running on a game on Fenris. Maybe if you're running a game that is on terrain similar to Fenris, but it's really up to you as the person either running the game or playing in the game.
And it really is meant to represent manifesting psychic powers that are in tune with your homeworld. This is really them being on a planet that is so much a part of their soul or being that they can manifest powers on a whole different level than what they can do elsewhere.
Yeah.
It might not have anything to do with actual warp powers. It just, because they feel so at home on this place, they manage to reach a certain level of calmness or something that just pushes their power to 11.
Yeah. Almost orky in a way. Like they actually they feel more at home. They feel powerful, and they're able
they believe they are more in tune with the place than the enemy.
Yeah, could be. You never know. You never know with the warp, right? So some generic rules for heroic psychic powers. These powers may be used by a psyker to boost one or more of the powers they know. During a game, they may choose to use either the standard version of the power or the heroic version. These powers may boost a warp charge greater than 3, but may still be harnessed by any psyker, at least any psyker with the Defender of the Fang special ability. The weird is also very enticing. A psyker which suffers the perils of the warp while channeling a heroic psychic power ignores all other perils of the warp results for the remainder of the game turn. These massive powers may never be channeled while the psyker is embarked on a vehicle, as the massive force of casting would rip apart even the mightiest of war machines. There's one special rule for this specific version, for the Defender of the Fang, called Plumbing the Lay. One psyker on Fenris may channel power directly from the world itself, adding 3 dice to his warp charge pool at any time during each psychic phase. So that's his own psychic phase or the enemy psychic phase. Snorri, you want to start going through the powers?
Yes. These powers are basically just amped up versions of the regular Space Wolf powers. First up, Living Lightning.
The normal version of Living Lightning is a range 18-inch, strength 7, AP dash, assault 3, shock power, which is basically if you rolled a hit, you scored an additional 2 hits. So powered up, Snorri.
It becomes a range unlimited assault 5, and in addition, the shots gain haywire.
Yes, so you can throw this thing at just about any unit and expect it to do something, and it basically lets a lot of these powers, the range has been increased to allow the Psyker to kind of sit on a battlement and start calling down the powers of Fenris from that position.
Yep. Next up, Stormcaller.
Stormcaller is a simple warp charge 1 power that gives the unit shrouding, and it's basic. It's a blessing, gives the Psyker and his unit shrouded, and it's basically like the tempest swirling around the caster as he uses his powers.
When this power is manifested heroically, however, you don't roll anything. It automatically takes effect as if the Psyker had scored 10 successes on his psychic roll. In addition, he may target one other unit within 12 inches to also benefit from the power.
So really, in essence, when you're channeling these powers, it's just happening naturally. When you're channeling heroic Weird of Fenris powers, you're always going to have this tempest surrounding you and making it difficult to hit you with shots.
Yeah, Stormcaller goes from being a very extremely localized snowstorm to basically the entire place starts to snow.
Yep.
Tempest Wrath is the next one, and it's a Warp Charge 2 power now.
Yes. The original one is only a Warp Charge 1, and it's a malediction that gives you a -1 to your ballistic skill, and you treat all terrain as difficult. In addition, unless they're immobilized, the models that have jump pack, flying monsters, creature flyer, they immediately take a dangerous terrain check. So instead of that, we expanded a little bit.
Yeah, range becomes unlimited, and it may be manifested multiple times by the same Psyker. So as long as you have enough warp dice to do it, you can keep casting it.
Yes, that's basically showing the storm kind of raging across the enemy battle lines, and it's only warp charge 2, so you just keep casting it multiple times, and the enemy is blinded by the force of the wrath of the planet.
Next up is Thunderclap.
Yep, Thunderclap is the original version is warp charge 1. It's only a 12-inch Nova, strength 3, assault 2d6.
When you manifest this power heroically, it becomes Warp Charge 3, and the number of shots is doubled.
Yeah, so instead of doing assault 2d6, it does assault 2d6 times 2.
Ooh. Not 4d6, but 2d6, and then you double that.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is Murderous Hurricane.
Yes, Murderous Hurricane is a Witchfire. It's basically a tempest that is manifested within the ranks of the enemy. It's like a 18-inch, strength 4, AP dash, assault 1, large blast, rending power. So imagine like a tornado going through the enemy's ranks.
But when you turn this up to 11, it becomes a Warp Charge 4, Assault 3 instead of Assault 1, and the range is unlimited. Also, the power may be manifested multiple times in the same round by the same Psyker, as long as you have enough dice.
Yep. So it's basically, imagine having multiple tornadoes, like, rampaging through your ranks. This is really representative of what Sturmyart. You're enjoying this, aren't you?
Yes.
Sturmyart does to the enemy in the book. He's basically got multiple tempests going, and he's killing multiple enemies with cracking lightning bolts. It's amazing.
I think this guy might be kind of, the Stormcaller plus?
Yeah.
He seems like it, at least.
I can see why he was so mad he didn't get a chance to go after Magnus.
And at the same time, I think that Greylock and the remaining Space Wolves are really glad he didn't leave.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, let's finish this and do the last two. Fury of the Wolf Spirits.
Yes. Fury of the Wolf Spirits is cool. And one of the entrances to the main stair in the Fang is guarded by Frecky and Gary, which I looked up on Wikipedia, and they're basically the wolves that pal around with Odin. And they're cool. The power of these wolf spirits is represented by this psychic power. It's normally Warp Charge 2. It's a Witchfire with 18-inch range. The Fury of Frecky is Strength 6, AP Dash, Assault 4. The Fury of Gary is 18-inch, Strength 5, AP 2, Assault 2, Precision Shot. So one is for killing multiple models. The other is for focusing on a single powerful model.
But when you manifest these heroically, it becomes Warp Charge 3, and the range is unlimited, and the Fury of Frecky is Assault 6, and the Fury of Geri is Assault 3.
Yes, you could easily kill an independent character with that as long as you hit with all your shots.
Last up, Jaws of the World Wolf.
So normally it's a Warp Charge 2 power, Focus Witchfire, 18 inches, single non-vehicle unit, and they take an initiative test or they die. Monstrous creatures automatically pass it.
But this being the biggest one, when you manifest it heroically, it becomes Warp Charge 3. Now you place a small blast template over the affected model, and each model underneath the template is affected instead of just that one.
Yep. So it's like a blast Jaws of the World Wolf. Now, obviously, none of the Lookout Sir shenanigans apply here. It's just everybody under the model needs to make an initiative test or die. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, thanks, man. I thought it was fun, and I'm wondering if, depending on how things work out in the future, we might do more of these. It really just depends on how often we see this kind of channeling of extreme power.
Yeah, and I think that the Space Wolves are quite special in this, since they have this special relationship to Fenris, and they don't consider it a warp power, it's the weird power instead. Yeah. So there's several things that are really special to the Space Wolves to make this happen, and it might not be easy to find a similar case for this.
Yeah, I think so too, but we'll keep our eyes open for sure. And this is also a great way for the listeners to say, well, my chapter has some cool special rules, and you could follow this template for your own chapter.
Yeah. So... The points value for this, while it is 150 points, but I think you have summarized it really well, Adam, that you're aiming for overcosting things and then maybe scaling it back a little bit, because some of these powers might not be worth the 150 points, but some of them really get cranked up. Yeah. So it has to cost a lot more than just going up one Psyker level.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like I said, we'll fiddle with the points as we go. Please do send your suggestions into mastersoftheforge@gmail.com or message us on Facebook or whatever, because your input really helps. None of this has been play tested quite yet. From On Your Tabletop number 11 has not been play tested yet, so we're leaving it up to you guys.
Yes. As the fight on Fenris really heats up, we're transported to Gangava Prime, and Iron Helm's fleet finally arrives.
Woo!
They make landing and start killing, as they're supposed to do, and make their way into the pyramid that they have basically divined that Magnus Red is in, because that thing just radiates evil.
Oh, it certainly does. And they tear through this city. And what's funny is, like, they kill the void they destroy the void generators, but they choose not. Let's be honest. Ironhelm chooses not to bombard the pyramid from orbit. Instead, he says, "We're gonna go in and face them man to man."
That's pretty ballsy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he's like, well, how? Yeah, even a Primarch can't stand up to the combined might of the Space Wolves.
But it ends up being something a weird fight.
Yeah. Well,
because there's no fight in the
right?
Yeah, exactly. In this pyramid they find an old man, and they assume that it's Magnus the Red, but there's everything's wrong with it. And this old man that they meet there, he tells them, you can fight me later, or you can fight me now. It's your choice, but both have consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. He says, I'm going to give you the choice that you didn't give me. Basically, I will let you choose to either kill me now or face me in my full power later. He's basically got Iron Helm in a state, kind of in a weird psychic stasis in mid swing, pushing against this stasis, trying to cut his head off, and he's giving Iron Helm this choice, and Iron Helm isn't even like considering the choice, which I find interesting. He isn't even thinking about it. He's not making the decision. The decision's already been made in his mind. And when Magnus's image finally has to let go, he Ironhelm chops this old man in half, and the old man dies, and it's just quiet. It's like an anticlimax for the Space Wolves, and they all kind of feel it.
Yeah, it's the whole. Okay, that was way too easy.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on?
Suddenly, some braziers erupt in flame, and they can see etched on the walls designs of their battles while they've been on Gangava Prime, even to little details of the fights. And they see that everything here has been foreseen, which might have some very interesting consequences.
Yeah, this is probably the best depiction of what is probably the Wolf Brothers.
Or at least some of the Wolf Brothers that have been captured.
Yeah, because what comes out are some warp-tainted half-werewolf, space marine somethings, and this is definitely not what the Space Wolves had expected, and also it repulses them like you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah. The Iron Helm doesn't order them to fall back. He orders them to slay these deformed monsters to the last, because if it is the Wolf Brothers, it is probably the darkest mark that they could possibly have on their, and this is also why everyone is so wary of Wormblade's experimentation, because this is the consequences of that meddling with the Emperor's plan.
Yeah, and I think that this is kind of, I think it's sort of a genius part of the Thousand Suns plan to lure the majority of the Space Wolves away from Fenris, trick them into, or force them into this decision of kill me now or face me later. Mm-hmm. And then the quote-unquote reward for killing Magnus the Red in his weakened state is that they are reminded of what is probably an even greater taint to their name than the failure to destroy the Thousand Suns at Prospero, namely this second founding.
The abomination.
Yeah, exactly. This second founding that has turned so bad that it should never be seen by anyone. It's pretty much the Space Wolf version of the split in Dark Angels.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's their dark secret.
Oh yeah.
So that's an interesting way to kind of end things off. We do have one final piece of rules for you to use in your games. One of the things I noticed when they were fighting through the streets of Gangava is this big formation of Space Wolf Terminators who accompanied Ironhelm into battle. It was about 20. It was. He said the author describes it as a score of elite warriors. So I thought it would be interesting to have an actual formation in the game to represent this vanguard of the Great Wolf.
When the Great Wolf goes to war, his elite warriors want nothing more than to be chosen as his personal bodyguards in the vanguard. This formation is an addendum to the Champions of Fenris Codex supplement.
That's right. The formation includes Logan Grimnar without Stormrider, 2 units of 10 Wolfguard, and Grimnar's War Council. So that is Grimnar's War Council is a formation within the Champions of Fenris Codex. It includes Ulrich, Niall, a Rune Priest, and an Iron Priest.
The special rules for this formation is first among equals, Kingsguard, and Sagaborn. They are all also covered in the Champions of Fenris Codex.
Yeah, and I'm a little confused because that Kingsguard one, I don't see where that is anywhere. And I did some research on the internet and tried to find out what it is, but I don't know what it is. So if any Space Wolf players out there can help us, let us know what that is, because I can't see it anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have the book, so I can't go in and check it myself.
Okay. All right, buddy. But we do have some other special rules for this formation.
We do. Tight formation is the first one, and that is the vanguard of the Great Wolf are deployed as a single unit. However, they enjoy the split fire rule, and up to 2 models may pick different targets instead of just one.
Right. So you have 20 Terminator, or well, I assume Terminators. They don't have to be Terminators, but if you have some heavy weapons in there, they can split fire. The next one is called Implacable Hunters. Saving throws against any wounds dealt to models in this formation by strength 3 or lower weapons may be rerolled. So, lads guns. Though it doesn't have any effect on wounds which wound on a set number. So like sniper rifles and stuff that are technically less than strength 4, it doesn't affect those wounds. In addition, models in this formation gain the Crusader special rule. And that's it. It's just a very simple formation kind of describing the Great Wolf going to war. And I guess that's it for our part 1 of our Battle of the Fang coverage. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed the book. It's a lot of fun, and blah 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 blah. I don't know how to finish that thought. So.
Well, this is my second time reading it since I had to brush up on reading this for this episode, and I still enjoy it a lot. I really hope that we can get a hold of Chris and talk to him about this supplement, but so far he has not responded yet. But we can always cross our fingers and hope.
Well, we'll give our full summaries at the end of the next episode, but I guess we'll take a break and close out the show. Hey, Masters of the Forge listeners, are you looking to expand your Warhammer 40,000 gaming group?
Do you want to start a 40k club in your area?
Do you want the people you attract to be like-minded mofos?
Do you want to advertise your YouTube channel?
Or even attract more subscribers to your hobby blog or online community?
Then what better way than to advertise on the Masters of the Forge podcast?
All we ask of you is that you email us at mastersoftheforge@gmail.com or message us on Facebook with a full text of your advertisement, including the region in which you live and any contact information people can use to get a hold of you.
We will have one of our many tech servitors read your advertisement on the air. We promise not to make fun of you.
Though we can't always predict the actions of our servitors, you really can't find good help these days.
No, you can't.
And with that, I think that we've done our best to misrepresent this book. Or have we done decently?
I think so. And we'll definitely catch everyone back in the next episode for the further adventures of the Champions of Fenris.
Yes. lone wolf and cub is something I felt like saying, but that's a totally different story. But there are definitely some wolves in there.
It's true. So like us on Facebook.
Please.
That's where you need to go. We've also got a website, mastersoftheforge.com.
And a Twitter account, Masters of Forge at Twitter.
Yep. And also, what do we have? We have the, we would like you to give us a nice review on iTunes. That's a big help. We really appreciate that. Get us to show up on the first page, maybe, of search results. That would be nice.
Yeah, not like that's ever going to happen. We're too small for that.
It's true.
But hey, we do have some people who like us, so apparently we do something good.
So, but the important thing is going to our website if you want to see any of the rules we talked about today. The website has a link for your On the Tabletop downloads, and this one will be On the Tabletop number 11. Now, none of the rules for part 2 will be in there yet. You'll have to wait till next week and download it again. But other than that, I guess we're ready to close out the show, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, so remember to play the game the way you want to. This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. The music used in this podcast was made by Parad of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission.